That or I become more non-understandable than I normally am. We are towards the end. We are in Esther chapter 9, like halfway through chapter 9, I do believe. Because we talked about the day that Haman had set aside instead gets turned upside down and becomes a day where the Jews defend themselves and the Jews plunder their enemies. How in the citadel of Susa, the Jews actually get an extra day. We debated whether or not that if they were the aggressors or the defenders. And we talked about, whoop. All right, I didn't see Roy back there, but he still is, okay. We talked about the concept of fear, on how we fear God. And I don't know what verse that came from or what it was like to fear the Lord. And so the neat thing is, because we didn't quite come to an understanding of that word fear, if it really meant just awe and reverence for God, or if there was any actual fear like you and I understand it. And I went on record saying, I think there's a little bit of fear like we understand it. And I referenced how the people, whenever we see an angel, which is far less holy than God, people usually prostrate themselves and they fall down in fear. And I was so confident in my own theology. And that lasted about 15 whole minutes, because right after Bible class, and we had to end it early because that was the day that we had the baptism for little Elowen, Miss Winnie. And as I was going through the baptismal liturgy, you do the baptism, and I baptize the little kiddo. I do a blessing over her, and then we give the kiddo two gifts, a candle and then a white cloth. And as I'm reading the liturgy for receiving the white garment, this is how it reads. Receive this white garment to show that you have been clothed with the robe of Christ's righteousness that covers all your sin. So shall you stand without fear before the judgment seat of Christ to receive the inheritance prepared for you from the foundation of the world. And I'm like, all right, as Christians, we do not believe in karma, but I am deeply convinced that our God has a wicked sense of humor. So I got to proclaim to you all that, yeah, there is a little bit of fear when we stand before God. And then I got to read publicly in our liturgy that, no, we stand without fear because we are covered with the robe of Christ's righteousness. And I guess that does make sense to me. Jesus would not stand with fear. Respect and awe before his Father, yes, but fear, no. And so because we are clothed in that robe of Christ's righteousness, and now you and I are probably going to struggle to understand that or ever feel comfortable with that, because when you and I look at ourselves, we see what? That mountain of sin that we have accumulated. And we probably can't even imagine or comprehend what it's like to stand before God and be righteous because, well, of ourselves, we are not. But
Well, you think of any story in the Bible where somebody sees even an angel. That's not even God.
I know.
But it's an angel. And what are they?
Yep.
Afraid.
Yep.
Afraid.
They are afraid. Even at some of the miracles, I mean, the disciples, when they were rowing in the boat and they saw Jesus walking on the water and they thought he was a ghost and they were afraid.
That's one kind of fear.
That is one kind.
Awe.
Yep. 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 All right. I am bound and determined that we are going to finish this book today. Well, it's 9 and 10, but I don't have the greatest of faith in us, John, because some of us tend roll with the punches. Some of us tend to get off on tangents. All right. Oops. Let's pick up chapter 9, verse 20 of Esther. The Feast of Purim inaugurated. And I'm not sure if it's Purim or Purim, or I just called it Purim. And Mordecai recorded these things and sent letters to all the Jews who were in all the provinces of King Xerxes, both near and far, obliging them to keep the 14th day of the month of Adar, and also the 15th day of the same, year by year, as the days on which the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month that had been turned for them from sorrow into gladness, and from mourning into a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and gladness, days for sending gifts of food to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted what they had started to do and what Mordecai had written to them. For Haman the Agagite, the son of Hammedatha, the enemy of all the Jews, had plotted against the Jews to destroy them, and had cast pur, that is, lots, to crush and destroy them. But when it came before the king, he gave orders in writing that his evil plan that he had devised against the Jews should return on its own head, and he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. Therefore they called these days Purim, after the term pur, or the lots, if you will. Therefore, because of all that was written in this letter, and of what they had faced in this matter, and of what had happened to them, the Jews firmly obligated themselves and their offspring and all who joined them, that without fail they would keep these 2 days according to what was written, and at the time appointed every year, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, in every clan, province, and city, and that these days of Purim would never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. Well, that is interesting.
Do the Jews still celebrate that day?
I believe they do.
Probably not all Jews.
Well, see, now the reason that this is interesting to me is because I labored under the assumption that all of the Jewish feast days and festivals were of divine origin, except for Hanukkah. Hanukkah was not instituted by God. That was instituted by the Jews themselves when they had recaptured the temple, or rededicated the temple in Jerusalem. Remember, it had been conquered by Epiphanes IV, or Antiochus. No, what was his name? Yeah, it was Antiochus Epiphanes IV. Sorry. He had gone, he was one of the rulers of one of the nations to the east of Israel, and he had decided to go make war on Egypt. And so then he marched his army through Israel to get to Egypt, and that went okay. But when they got to Egypt, that's when they found the Roman legions under General Pompey. And that's literally when General Pompey drew a line in the sand with his staff and dared Antiochus to cross it, which Antiochus, even though he was not right in the head, knew better than to mess with the Roman legions. And so in humiliation, he turned around. And this is the classic case of the youngest kid, after being picked on by the older ones, turns around and kicks the dog, right? So Antiochus wound up kicking the dog, which happened to be Judah, little tiny Judah that he marched his army through, went back to Jerusalem and conquered it. And on the day that he conquered it, they desecrated the temple. They took the blood of pigs, and they killed the 64 Jewish priests and mixed their blood with the blood of the pigs and splattered it all over the altar and the temple. And he turned it into a temple of Zeus. And then his nation occupied Israel for Judah. I forget for how long, but then the Jews began to fight back, and they were led by Judas Maccabees. And then finally, it's probably one of the first recorded instances of guerrilla warfare, because the Jewish army was not a cohesive unit. It was just small raider bands, and they would attack and do some damage, and then they would run away, and they would hide in all of the caves that are around Jerusalem and whatnot. And so eventually they did enough damage that they were able to gather and then defeat the armies of Antiochus IV. Antiochus called himself Epiphanes, God incarnate, but his people called him Epimanes, the madman, because, well, he was not right in the head. And so when they kicked him out and they reconsecrated the temple back to God, that became Hanukkah. And so that's the observance, but that was started by the Jews. And I did not realize that Purim was also started by the Jews. I thought, again, it was a God ordained, and unless something changes in the next few paragraphs. And it's funny that Purim should never fall into disuse among the Jews, nor should the commemoration of these days cease among their descendants. And it's wonderful irony, because if all of these observances that God had ordained would fall into disuse, because again, we had read through Ezra and Nehemiah that what happened, that a lot of the observances that God had commanded, the Jews stopped doing them. They went into disuse. And so it's just funny when we as people think that something that we establish will not fall into disuse, when the things that God establishes we allow to fall into disuse. Which is also, it's interesting, because I'm curious now, I'd have to talk to a Jewish person these days on whether or not they observe Hanukkah, but not the man-made celebration, and not some of the other God-ordained celebrations.
Because it's usually close to what we celebrate.
Christmas, yeah.
It's right before, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so you hear about it.
They overlap.
Oh, yeah, they even teach it in schools.
Yeah.
They teach Hanukkah in schools.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've never heard of Purim.
Yep.
He was telling me that in the Jewish calendar, Hanukkah isn't even that important of a Jewish holiday. You know, with some of the
For the more Orthodox, I would imagine that is correct. Yeah.
Hanukkah is just because it's close to Christmas. Everybody's got to have their own Christmas.
And we'll make up one in case we
Well,
cover.
that's essentially what they did with
With Kwanzaa. Yeah.
Kwanzaa.
Yeah.
They made it up in the 1960s or something
Yeah,
like that.
not too long, very long ago.
All right.
It says here that the Feast of Purim is still widely celebrated annually to commemorate the saving of the Jewish people in ancient Persia. And it begins this year, the evening of Monday, March 2nd, and continues through Tuesday, March 3rd.
Yeah, it's right at the end.
See, I told you God has a wicked, he has a wicked sense of humor. Wow. I had no idea that it was tomorrow. Yeah, but it's going to float. It'll float with a range because of the difference in the Jewish calendar to the Roman calendar. John, can you say that again? I missed part of what. So I know that day will float, right? Because the Jewish calendar was lunar.
Lunar, yeah, no, it was in the, whatever days they specify here, 14th, 15th,
Yeah.
in this case, of Adar. Adar was the last month of their calendar year, of their religious
Right.
year.
Right.
And first, I was just saying, the first month is Nisan. That's when the Exodus occurred. The 14th was the day of preparation. And then also was Good Friday in the New Testament, Nisan 14th. Christ died on Friday the 14th. And that was preparation of the
Passover.
as foreshadowing from the Old Testament. So yeah, we do know the calendar date when Christ was, and there's a big debate between two, because during the time frame possible, when Pilate was there, AD 30 and AD 33 are the two possible dates where Nisan 14th occurred on Friday. And in the Julian calendar, I think it was at the time second or 3rd of April. I don't got that off the top of my head, but I got it written down.
Chief of sinners, though you are. All right.
There's lots of chiefs in that group.
Yes, there are. Yeah, that's a big tribe. Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail and Mordecai the Jew, gave full written authority confirming this second letter about Purim. Letters were sent to all the Jews, to the 127 provinces of the kingdom of Xerxes, in words of peace and truth, that these days of Purim should be observed at their appointed seasons, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther obligated them, and as they had obligated themselves and their offspring with regard to their fasts and their lamenting. The command of Queen Esther confirmed these practices of Purim, and it was recorded in writing. Miss Jane, since you have the Oracle of all knowledge open, how do they celebrate? What do they do?
I did read that, and now I have to reopen it, but it said it was a very festive, carnival-like atmosphere where they reenact the story of Esther, and they celebrate by eating these triangular-shaped pastries that are filled with fruit. And they read through the story of Esther, and that's all that I can remember. But there's a few more things to do.
Does it say what kind of fruit?
They give gifts.
Eating pastries and fruit, that jumps Purim up pretty high. That's good. The Passover meal is not nearly as nice.
Came from?
No.
They send gifts of food to their family and friends and take care of the poor.
Oh, okay. All right.
So they are following
What was written, yeah.
that's
All right.
what they were supposed to do.
See, now I'm going to have to look up Purim. All right. Chapter 10. King Xerxes imposed tax on the land and the coastlands and the sea, and all the acts of his power and might, and the full account and the high honor of the high honor of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was second in rank to King Xerxes, and he was great among the Jews, and popular with the multitude of his brothers, for he sought the welfare of his people and spoke peace to all his people.
It's a pretty good legacy.
You know, it makes you wonder, though, that in archaeology, right, digging up old records in Babylon or Persia or whatever, that I don't know if they just never tried to fit names and faces with what was recorded of them.
Well,
And on, you know, back then and what we find in records and all that.
we're still going to have to wait. So the official history of this period in the Persian archives recounted the acts of Xerxes and the high honor of Mordecai. The two kingdoms, Media and Persia, are mentioned in chronological order, suggesting that this official history covered several centuries. These particular chronicles have not been preserved by history. So far, we have not found them. Yep, if they are going to exist,
Well,
and if they exist on paper or papyrus or vellum,
well, Susa is basically a ruin,
yes, yeah,
so that may account for some.
yep. And there's generally been upheaval in that region of the world for a very long time.
Yeah,
Still is.
Right,
the Parthians.
Yep.
Them.
right. Because even didn't ISIS spend some of their energy destroying a lot of the historical and ancient relics from other religions, specifically Christianity and Judaism? So who knows? Those records may never be found. So while he doesn't get the recognition of others that have risen very high in the rank, Mordecai deserves to be mentioned in the same breath as Joseph, as Daniel, as achieving this very high, my notes kind of have it like, prime minister, if you will, to the king. But again,
Basically the same situation that Joseph had.
Joseph and,
Pharaoh.
and did Daniel get that high?
I don't think he got that high, but he was very
All right.
highly placed and influential
All right.
in both the Babylonian and Persian.
I always kind of lump them pretty high up, but
Well, why didn't he get recognition?
we just as Christians in our own history, we just don't talk about it as much. I don't know why.
Okay.
I have no idea. I mean, just because with Joseph and Daniel, you have much longer portions of Scripture that are dedicated to them. For Mordecai, I mean, you get, a few chapters in Esther, and it's not until this very last brief chapter that says he was elevated and recorded. And it may be because his honorific starts with King Xerxes imposed a tax. Now, thanks, King. That's going to do wonders for my popularity.
It probably doesn't get as much recognition because a lot of the other stuff was directly related to the lineage leading up to Christ too, right? Joseph didn't go through Joseph's line, but it obviously went through his father's line and his brother's line. So they were closely related there to, one of the phenomenal events in Israelite history, the Exodus. And that's why, though, that was probably more prominent in what the Christian church focused on throughout the development of its considered important. Whereas this is a side act.
All right. My last note on chapter 10 actually was worth reading. This postscript to Esther praises Xerxes and Mordecai for providing the people with good government and for seeking their welfare. Martin Luther included pious and faithful rulers and good government among the blessings for which we pray in the fourth petition of the Lord's Prayer, which is, give us this day our daily bread. When you look and read the catechism on this one, you will get good government and pious rulers as part of those blessings. Sometimes we fail to appreciate this gift from God, but rather murmur and complain about our leaders. St. Paul reminds believers that God instituted earthly authority, and Christians humbly accept their leaders as evidence of God's providential care for us and others. It's interesting if you can use that as an argument or justification to support Christians being more active in the public square, in government, and those kinds of things, because you will get arguments on both sides of that issue, whether we should be more involved, less involved, more vocal, less vocal, that kind of stuff. But on the bigger scale, the entire book of Esther, I would think, argues for being more vocal and more involved, because you see how God worked through Mordecai and worked through Xerxes to bring about, blessings on his people.
This could also be maybe one of the reasons that the later Ezra and Nehemiah were, in terms of time, followed this by a couple decades, and that may also explain why the Jews received very preferential treatment during the period of Ezra and Nehemiah in establishing a little province of Judah and having favor with Artaxerxes, who followed Xerxes I as the next Persian emperor. So that could explain maybe why Nehemiah and the Jews had some influence at the highest levels there to gain that favorable treatment.
All right. That is it for that period of history. For the last few minutes that we have, and we're not going to do this in its entirety, but we're going to turn to the Song of Solomon, chapter 2, beginning at verse 11. Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verse 11. It is right after the book of Ecclesiastes. So Psalms, Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, Song of Solomon.
Are we going to go back to that? Or are we just beginning?
We have not really been going in order. We kind of picked a time period. This is just going to take 2 minutes, and then we'll collectively decide where to go to next. 2 minutes.
Of which 15 seconds or 20 seconds is already gone.
Right, because the peanut gallery keeps popping up. But that's okay, because even the peanut gallery is going to fit into this next discussion. Sort of. All right.
This is one book I can't figure out how it got in the Bible.
All right. Can I get a volunteer to read Song of Solomon, chapter 2, verses 11 through 12? 11 and 12, just those two verses. Go ahead, Miss Dawn.
Miss what?
Heather. I knew that.
For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle dove is heard in our land.
So in the King James Version, does anyone remember how they translate turtle dove? They drop the word dove, and it just says the voice of the turtle. Why is that appropriate for this time of year? Come on, my Tiger baseball fans. How many of you ever listened to Ernie Harwell on the radio?
Oh, yeah.
And every spring, and Ernie's inaugural broadcast, what would he do?
Did he read this?
He would read these two verses. For behold, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of singing has come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land. All right, Miss Jane, since you have the oracle of all knowledge, you've got to look up Ernie Harwell and the voice of the turtle. If we can hear Ernie's voice do this, because, well, Tigers spring training has commenced. And I'm a week late. I would have done this a week ago, and it would have been absolutely perfect because they had just begun. And I don't know if the current broadcasters still replay Ernie reading this message. But I have to tell you, I grew up listening to Ernie, born in 1968, and so all of my formative years and many of my adult years, Ernie was the guy that was on the radio call.
Sorry, this is the ad.
That's all right. It's all right. Don't worry about it. You can skip it in a minute.
All right, you ready?
You ready?
Oh, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone. The flowers appear on the earth, the time of the singing of birds is come, and the voice of the turtle is heard in our land.
Go, Ernie.
I did not.
I was 50 years old, and we were someone in my very first vacancy congregation, they had a son of their congregation marry a deaconess. He became a pastor, and he married a deaconess in our synod. And the deaconess there is Heidi Gaiman, and Heidi is very well known, and she's written a number of Bible studies. But Heidi had just written a Bible study, a very in-depth Bible study on the Song of Solomon. And so we were going through that, and we came to this verse, and we read it, and I'm like, God, why does that sound so stinking? No one reads from the Song of, I don't even think it's in our lectionary. We just don't do it. And I made the connection. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's what Ernie Harwell was saying, because it was so bizarre, the voice of the turtle. And you and I are thinking, what sound do turtles make? And if they make a sound, I don't think it can be. I'm sure they do, but I would never call it pleasant. But, that's just how the King James translated turtle dove as turtle.
Was that verse. I immediately think of Herbert Garsky, if anybody, long time ago, knew Herb Garsky. He was our choir director and he organist at St. Paul's long time ago, when he was still living. And he picked this as a song that we sang in choir. And it was that verse that it was based on. You remember that?
No.
Oh. Those men, they don't remember.
I don't remember anything. Yeah, start taking your forever.
But it was a song, and I don't know where he found that music, that we would sing that occasionally in the spring, so that this winter is past, and I don't know why, what kind of, except that it's found in the Bible. I don't know what else was the reason for singing that hymn in the Bible.
Did it say turtle, or did it say turtle dove in the song?
I think it was turtle, probably, because it was an old song.
King James Version.
He found the music, someplace, probably in the bottom pile of the music that had been stored at St.
All right.
Louis for umpteen years. Did you don't remember that? I was sure you probably would.
And just so Miss Heather is vindicated, you're right. You were skeptical of the 2 minutes, and the peanut gallery was correct, because that took longer than 2 minutes.
Okay, what were you saying?
Never mind.
Okay.
All right. Where do we want to go from here? Knowing at the glacial speed of which I conduct Bible studies, that this is going to be the ultimate, or at least the penultimate book that we go through.
How come nobody likes Song of Solomon? I'm just curious. You guys are throwing some shade at it. Why? What's wrong with it?
It's never impressed me, but
Why? What? It's like nice little,
it's like
poetry.
yeah,
It is poetry. Just because the Hebrew poetry are one of the more difficult books to try and go through. And just because it is one of the harder books to find Jesus in.